You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. Hey everyone, welcome back to Just a Dude podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, just a regular dude bringing you stories from extraordinary people. Today, we've got a guest whose life is nothing short of a roller coaster of faith, struggle, and triumph. Gina Economopoulos is with us. She's an end-of-life doula, a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the author of the best-selling memoir, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. Born in New York to an Italian-Greek family, Gina's journey took her from bartending to 12 years in a convent, through the depths of loss and alcoholism, and now to the Jersey Shore where she helps others in their final moments. Gina, welcome to the show. Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself, your elevator pitch, so to speak?
Well, thank you, Nathan. It is so good to be here to you and all the listeners. Yes, my name is Gina Economopoulos. I was my life is a journey of excitement and sadness and suffering, but yet it's a great journey. I was a bartender. I was a Catholic nun. Then I was a bartender, and believe it or not, I'm a recovering alcoholic. So I'm in the rooms of AA, and I live a sober life today on the Jersey Shore.
Wow, I gotta say, your life kind of sounds like a movie. I know I read some childhood surgeries, losing your mom, the convent, addiction, and now this incredible purpose that you've found. And obviously, we're going to dive into all of this today. You know, a bit of from despair to redemption, so to speak. But before we get started, I want to let everyone know where they can learn more about you at your website, and that is Gina Econ, all one word, right? GinaEcon.com. That'll be on the screen as well, Gina. But that's where you'll find details about Gina's book, her work, and everything else. So with that, I just wanted to get that up first so we can send people there if we need to. But let's talk about the beginning. You know, you grew up in New York, right?
That's right.
And it was a tight-knit Italian-Greek family. But what was that like, and how did those early years really shape you, Gina?
Yes, I was the seventh child of 8 kids. I was the baby girl. I was spoiled. I was born with a lot of health problems, so I kind of stood out among my other siblings. My siblings were very athletic, and in my eyes, they were beautiful, popular. So inside me, as a little girl who was always, had some sort of physical problems, I always compared myself. I wanted to be like my sisters, but I couldn't. Oh, look at my sisters. And so I just kind of formed this identity in a way of I would say I was shy because I kept everything inside. And the only thing that kept me going was my smile. My smile. I was named after Gina Lollobrigida, so those listeners may know who of her. She was a famous actress back in the 60s. So I was like this persona of this, oh, look at this little Gina Lollobrigida, how cute she is, and she smiles all the time. But meanwhile, after going for surgery and everything, I did smile, and I just never complained. I never complained. And I do one thing I would love to point out is that I had loving parents. My parents were unconditionally loved, no matter if you played basketball or you didn't. Like they loved each one of us unconditionally, which was that.
Yeah.
I think that really shaped me and brought me to keep going, to keep going.
Thank goodness. And to think too, and I know different times a little bit, right, Gina, but to have 8 children and show unconditional love to all of you is just, I mean, today, I don't want to say that would be unheard of, but definitely is probably not the rule, but the exception sometimes, which is unfortunate. But
Yeah.
growing up in a big family, I mean, that's gotta, were you always feeling like you were in competition with your siblings?
In a way, yes. And the oldest of my sibling, I would say I'm sorry, there's a 20-year difference between the oldest and the youngest. So everyone was like born in a different, like the first 4, and then there was 2, and then there was me. And then my younger brother Steven came along, and my mom had him when she was 49 years old. So there was like a difference generation.
Yeah.
like in so many ways, how how my parents brought up the first four and then this. And I just felt I felt I was so insecure with myself. Yes, I did. I mean, like I shared earlier, I looked at my sisters like, oh, I wish I could play basketball. I wish I could do this, but I couldn't run because I was born with a hip dislocation when I was a baby. So
Mm.
right from the get go, I was in a body cast at an infancy age, which of course I don't remember, but
Sure.
unconsciously we remember these things. And I didn't think it would affect me. So I was sort of like compensating it by smiling, by being nice, being cute. As you see, my last name is Economopoulos. So I asked at high school, by the time I went into high school, they're like, "Oh, another Economopoulos. Are you going to be playing basketball?" This because my sisters were very
Sure.
athletic. They won MVPs in their sports, and my brothers too. And then here I come along. And then, like I said, my younger brother, my mom was 49. At that time in the 70s, they're like, that's a late age, the
Oh,
baby
yeah.
may be. But Steven came out perfect. Here, he was athletic, played baseball and soccer and so I was like, "What happened to me?" In my mind, "What happened to me?" But yet, like I said, my parents unconditional love, and I could this story comes to my mind because I'm at my brother's baseball game, and he's doing well, pitcher, blonde hair, blue eyes, everybody loves, great kid, nice kid. My mom and I are in the stand, and one of my parent comes up to my mom and says, "You're Stephen Economopoulos' mom?" And he's, yes, my mom was very humble. And "Oh, he's fabulous. You're fabulous. You must be so proud of him, and everything. And like he's a great kid." And my mother says, "I'm proud of all my kids, all my children." And I was
I
sitting
love
right
that.
there, and that was a seed that was planted that I kept with me. I was like, "Oh, wow, I'm not playing this. I'm not doing this. I can't run around the block, like this." But my mother
Yeah.
loved me like that, unconditionally, as well as my dad and my family too.
Yeah.
So
So obviously it was probably a little tough for you growing up, right? With the surgeries and the medical issues that you had. And
yeah,
did that affect how you grew up, do you think, because of those limitations that you had?
yeah, yeah. Yes, it did, but I hid it. And back then I hid. I hid oh no, everything is great, everything is great. And I came to a point throughout my childhood is that if anything bad's gonna happen, it's gonna happen to Gina. So I formed that identity within myself. Like if something went wrong, like one time I was riding a bicycle. Everybody rides bicycles, and I was riding doubles with my friend, which we're not supposed to do, but yet,
Right.
I did it like one of those banana seats, like this. So here, we're doing it without our parents finding out. And she went over a bump. She flew over the handlebars and I broke my femur bone. I was out of
Oh
commission
my
for six
gosh.
months.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
these little things, I kept thinking, why me? Look at me. Oh no, yeah, hey, I could handle it. I can handle it. After breaking your femur bone at the age of 12, going through traction, where today they got new technology, but
Yeah,
back
you're
then
right.
they
Everything's
did
changed even since I was a child, right? Everything's changed. Every 10 years it seems like something new.
yeah. And so I got used to pain, I got used to physical pain. I could remember afterwards, my brother-in-law slammed the door on my finger. I didn't scream. I was like, "Oh, you gotta open the thing," like I was just used to it. And I became to say, "No, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll do it. I'll have it." And that's how I felt. That's when and because there were so many experiences, like being in a car accident, everybody walks away and Gina gets going to the hospital, goes to the emergency room, like things like that. So my own insecurity in my own self, which of course back then I didn't know we had something inside ourselves, but I just was like, look at me, poor me, poor me, poor
Yeah, that's
me.
I mean, that's gotta be tough though growing up too and then seeing, what you would perceive probably as your siblings being "normal," quote unquote, right? And you sit here and feel like every time there's something that goes wrong, it happens to Gina and,
Mm,
but
yeah.
obviously that built some strength into you too, right?
You know what? I guess so. I wouldn't say it at that time. I just, I was like a people pleaser. I was like trying to be popular. I was searching for that love, that security. I was trying to do everything. Like I got it with my family, but yet, you want to find it among peers. And So here, you go into high school, I was friends with everyone, you name it, everyone loved me, but I felt like, it was sort of like I was just, I didn't like myself, so it was just trying to fit in. I was trying to find
Yeah.
a place to fit in, and I really never did. And then I'm thinking, now here, being young, my parents, like I said, great family. Wow, what my dream? My dream was to get married by the time I was 18 and have kids 19, have at least 5 or 6 kids, 8 kids. Because my parents,
Yeah.
the love that they had for each other. I mean, of course, it wasn't easy. My mother being the Italian, but she was a house mom, loved being the traditional. My parents,
Mhm.
well, call old fashioned, but yet I like, that's what it was, and looking back, it was a great. I'm glad, the traditional way. And here, and seeing my oldest siblings finding their spouses at college. So here, yes, I'm going to college. I'm going to
Yeah.
find my man. But I did. I go to college. I found nobody.
So you went to college, right? And did you stay in college? Did you complete a degree?
Yes, I got 2
Okay.
degrees. I got a
Nice.
degree in social work, and my other degree was billiards. I was a great pool player in the bars out there.
Wow.
It
That's
wasn't a
pretty
real
awesome,
degree,
though.
but I made it. But I was a pool
Yeah.
shark. I was
I
a
love.
I was a pool shark, I was a drinker, and I went to school. I took social work, so I have a social work degree. But yet, I was more in the bars and drinking, and I was able to run the table.
Yeah,
So it was
right?
at that
Clean their
time it was
clock, right?
fun. Yes.
So, how did you go from, college, you got degrees, you did a little drinking, maybe a little hustling at the pool hall, right? But
Yeah.
how did you go from that to 12 years in a convent?
Oh, oh my God. Did I do that? No, just kidding. I am. Well, I graduated from college, and my parents at this time moved to Pennsylvania. So I went to go. I didn't have anyone, and my mom's like, "Oh, Gina, we built an extra room for you, so okay, I'll go home." And I really didn't want to because I was living a college life. I was living a college life. So being home after college, you get a job, right? Aren't we supposed to get a job? A
We're
nine to
supposed
five
to, yep.
job. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll be a social worker, go for this estate job. But at the same time, I need another job just to get me through, to help to show my parents I'm responsible. And I am a hard worker. I always worked, and even in high school and every, I always worked. And so I bartended, never bartended before. I was on the other side of the bar. So I got a job
Yeah.
bartending. This is great, And meanwhile, I'm thinking I may find my man there. Thank God I didn't. But at the same time, here I'm bartending, enjoying life, enjoying bartending. I'm in my in my college life, like a college life. But yet I'm living with my parents. I do have respect. They were the fear of God in me. I was like, did not want to disobey him, did not want to hurt them because everything they did for me. During that time, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And once again, like that's like my story or my theme. Once again, I happened to be at home. My younger brother, Steven, just went off to college, first year, just graduated from high school. So it was my dad and I, and my mom was diagnosed with bone cancer, terminally ill. She had 4 to 6
Yeah.
months to live. So I didn't think twice. I'll help dad take care of mom because I'm home. But at the same time, like, why is it always me? Why can't I have that white picket fence? Why can't I do this? But at the same time, and meanwhile, right before my mom was diagnosed, I had a whole list of applications because I thought I would be working on a cruise ship, like be a Julie McCoy, just go traveling. Like I was like a
Yeah.
social butterfly and everything. And but with my mom being sick, no, okay. So here my mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was raised Catholic. By this time, I was not going to church because I was in college. It's not that I didn't believe in God, I just didn't need it. My parents were very devout. So so my mom got the rosary out, which I never knew, and like different Catholic traditions, prayers, and etc. And so I was like, okay, I'll go back to the church because I did receive all my sacraments. And at this time, when you hear your mom's dying, anything, you turn
Yeah.
to God.
It
I
teams
turn to
it
God.
tends to bring you back to God when something like that, I mean, like we had here in the US, right, with we've seen a lot of people with that
Yes,
assassination this last week, and I know by the time this airs, this will be old news, but you've seen a
I
lot of
know.
people recently go to God, which, as unfortunate as the whole situation was, if that's the good thing that comes out of it, then, hey, at least something good came out of it.
And just on the side note, you know that Charlie's smiling because that is the good note. That's what he was meant to be.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and yes, but yeah, I did. But when I mean I turned to God, it was sort of like, okay, God, if I say these prayers, mom would be healed. I didn't know who God was. I didn't know who Jesus was. I didn't have a relationship with them, with God or the church. It was just motion. Okay. Well, my mom died. She died in 5 months, so I'm like, "Oh god, you didn't answer my prayers? What is it? I did everything." We prayed, went
Right.
to church, said this 20 times, said this, like that, sat up, sit like and, so when she died, I was 23 years old, and I was bartending, and I totally lost it. I totally lost it because I did see my mother die. I was there. I was taking care of her. I didn't know, like everyone says she's going to heaven. Yes, I heard of heaven, but what is heaven? Why me? Why did I have to lose my mom at 23 when I don't have a boyfriend? I'm not married. I don't even have a life per se. Yes, I'm bartending. And yes, I'm breathing.
Right, but no, I know exactly what you mean because, you're expecting that, hey, at 23, at least maybe meet somebody, start thinking about having a family, having a mother come to your wedding, all those things are very important to a young
Yeah.
person, whether it be a
Yeah.
a male or a female, right? But you've got all this, plus your mom loved you so much, as you've already stated, and now she's gone.
She's gone. So and at my mom's wake and funeral, everyone kept saying she's with God and she's in heaven. And I'm like, you know what? Leave me alone. I don't want to hear that. But yet there was a determination in my mind and heart saying, what is heaven? Who is God? Who is this God person? So I did. I went back to the Catholic Church and I prayed. And at first, not that I prayed, I cried, I yelled, and I said to God in the church, I said, God, they said my mom's with you. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to my mom.
Right.
And I did that for a good year. Just like I was always there, I was journaling, writing things out, crying, like, "Why me? Why me?" I wasn't bartending, I was lost, I was clinging to my dad thinking that he would die. I was like, "I don't have anyone, I don't have a spouse, I don't have a boyfriend, I don't have," like how my siblings do, they all whether had a girlfriend or married and established, have kids, and I was totally lost. I was totally lost. So as I was going back to the church, I had what you would say a conversion. I came back to my faith. I had like the resurrection, like I know who Jesus is, and it was like at Easter. I had an Easter resurrection thinking,
Yeah.
well, through my mom's death, I came to know Jesus. And then right into that, like not really nurturing it, I decided to join a nun, the convent. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go join the convent because during that time I met this community of young men and women that just gave their life to God. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I wanted. And so I did. I joined the convent when I was now at this time I was 29 years old, and because I was trying to do my searching and grieving, whatever you want to call it, but I was there was still something inside me that wasn't there. I can't like in hindsight. Back then, yes, I found I know where I belong, Nathan. I belong in this convent as a Franciscan
Right.
sister. By nature, my heart is compassion. By nature, I do like to help people. Like, I mean, not only being a bartender, but being a social worker, helping the poor, whatever. So, being a Franciscan, I did. I lived in the South Bronx. I was a sister for 12 years. Once again, this is my life. Back in 2004, I made final vows. I married God. I got the
Yeah.
ring. I laid down my life, not only for God, for the church, for my community, and for those we serve. Like, yes, I'm living a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience for the rest of my life. But as you
Right.
could tell, I'm not a sister today. So
Yeah,
I
and
had, Yeah, I
What led to, so 12 years in there, I mean, that had to be
yes.
a pretty powerful experience though, right? I mean, I have to assume that you probably got a good amount of life lessons and getting closer to God during that time, right?
Yes, I did. I mean, I do have to say during that time in the beginning, you're like on a pink cloud. Everything is great. Everything is great. You're helping people. I love to pray for some reason that became a gift, praying for people, interceding, helping people. But yet the community in itself, the sisters, in hindsight, they were sick. They were dysfunctional. And my spirit did not jive with their spirit. And it took me 12 years to realize that because I never said anything. I always endured everything. I was always that person to like bring it all in and just smile, smile. Yeah, everything is great. Everything is great. But meanwhile, it was such a broken community time in my life that I did. I experienced a lot of pain, suffering, rejection. In hindsight, I say I was emotionally abused in so many
Mm,
ways.
mhm,
And that's what yes, I did write my book and I wrote my memoir and I put more extents into that, of just my experience as a nun at that time. And that and learning that they were sick too. Like it was a new community. I didn't, I personally at the time put religious life on a pedestal. They can't do anything wrong. Why they do this to me, because they were very mean to me, and I put up with it.
mhm.
I guess that's the thing, I always put up with everything, like, "Yeah, okay, I'll
Yeah,
take it,
you seem to
I'll
always
take
get
it."
along to go along, right?
Yes,
Like you said, I think you said earlier, and I'm a victim of this too, being a people pleaser. Right?
yes,
And
yeah,
yeah, I think it's when that
and you wanna
happens at
make
such a
peace.
young, yeah, you
Yeah,
do.
I'm sorry. I'm
No, I was
sorry
gonna
to
say when that
interrupt.
happens to you at a young age, when you're gonna, be a people pleaser, it makes it hard to get out of that habit. Not saying that that's a bad habit, but if that's what you're continuing to do, for everything, at some point you gotta take care of yourself too, right? And then
Yeah.
realize some people maybe, I don't wanna say aren't worth pleasing, but, are maybe not the people that you should be trying to please.
Yes, exactly, and plus being insecure. Even I had a full habit. I was wearing a full habit. I was a
Yeah.
very famous sister, famous nun in the Catholic world back then. I was like on TV, on EWTN. I mean, I everybody loved Sister Regina. Everybody loved Sister Regina. Everybody wanted me to go share because I would tell people I was a bartender and then a nun, a bartender, a pool shark, and a
Yeah.
nun. Oh my god, we gotta get her. We gotta have her
Yeah.
talk to our kids.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing about that is I think there's a lot of folks, that maybe to go and be a nun or a priest or something that maybe like right out of high school, right? So not a lot of life experiences. So they know a lot about God and Jesus and the Bible, but maybe not a lot about what's going on in the world, right? In the
Yeah.
actual world. And you had that experience, which was really, if you think about it, made you, I don't want to say that there's a step of to be a nun level 3, right? But it put you to the next level to really understand the people you were working with.
Yeah, I mean, and I look back is that I was looking for something. I had an empty soul. Even granted, I married God, and you think, I mean, God, I know God loved me, but there was something inside me that was still searching, and plus being treated. I was so mistreated that I was putting up with it. In hindsight, there were other sisters that came before me, or even when I was there, they were there for about maybe you would say, a few years, and they were treated the same way, but they left. They left. They knew to leave. I didn't. I'm like, no, 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 because I was Sister Regina. So many times I did wanted to leave. And I would
Mhm.
go to my superior and I would go to my director who started this community because it was a fairly new community and it's very well known community because there's the friars on the other side. But anyhow, they would I would say, I don't feel happy here. I don't know what's going on. And oh no, 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 you belong here. You belong here. Okay. That's from
Yeah.
God. I'm
Right.
obedience. That's from God. And
Yeah.
but then after 12 years, after going through a lot of or I don't know what you want to call it, suffering, pain, I was like discharged. I mean, I wasn't discharged, I was sent away, and I was working on myself and I coming back and they still wouldn't embrace me for who I was. And then at the end they said, "Oh, you don't belong here anymore." I'm like, 5 years ag you know what I mean? Like, and I was just very so when I left there, I was kicked out. They may not say it, who knows? I don't know what they may think of that whole era time. It was about almost it was in 2008 now, since I left, since I was asked to leave. But at the same time, they didn't wanna ruffle the feathers, with other people. They
Right.
didn't wanna so they're like and I was a popular nun. And like I said, there was a lot of dysfunction beforehand because a lot of sisters were coming and going. So people were already looking at the comments saying, "What's wrong with the sisters? Oh, no, everyone's great. Everything's great. Everything's great." And then when I left, it was like, "Oh my god," and they wanted I mean, it was just a really sad
Yeah, it
state
almost
of
sounds like it
affairs.
became very political, right? We've
Yeah,
gotta look good and be, instead of actually doing what
exactly.
they were supposed to do. I have to
Exactly.
imagine even being asked to leave, what was it like, making a decision like that? Because obviously you
Well,
had to agree to leave, right? I mean, they asked you,
I
but you still
had
had to
to.
agree.
Like I said, I stayed because they kept saying that you belong here, you belong here. So when they say you don't belong here, I'm like, well, I was like in shock. I was like, but at the same time, see, prior to that, I was away and I came back with a new spirit. I had peace in me. I was starting to work in the community, helping, being I was sort of demoted. I was like on my hands and knees with a toothbrush. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
right.
I wasn't allowed to go out because in hindsight, they felt threatened by me. Because I have a personality plus, even with a
Mhm.
I have it on. Everybody loved me, and like I said, so and I felt, and that's what people said. You're threatening the community because your spirit is this way, they're that way, and I was like, so when she did say that to me, I just said, okay, what could I say? I did everything I could. I was gone for the convent like almost previous 2 years. I went to a rehab for nuns and sisters for 4 months. I was in another place for 7 months, like, I was working on myself, and I did get some healing during that time, so I wanted to come and share with them. What was struggling with me is that I had made final vows, and when it's like a marriage, if with 2 like a marriage, they do everything they can to make it work. So I did
Absolutely.
everything I could to make it work, and then and in the long run I believe that they just wanted to kick me out years before that, that in the long run, they just made me go through tr pain and suffering and rejection. I was like, you name it, they wouldn't allow I wasn't allowed back at the convent at one time because I was like, "What did I do wrong? I didn't kill
Yeah.
anyone." That's how I felt like I killed
Right,
somebody.
yeah, you felt like, yeah, you were a big criminal that, nobody wants to associate with now, right? These are the
No.
people you've lived your last 12 years with, and
Yes.
they're basically treating you like you're a criminal that just, I don't know, did you like you
Yeah.
said, murdered somebody, but you didn't.
And in the long run, in hindsight, the person who was in charge at the time, she had passed away since then. She was sick herself. She was very dysfunctional. And everybody was kind of dysfunctional because somebody like the hierarchy saw what was going on, not only with me, but with other sisters, but they wouldn't say a thing. They never said a thing. Like when I was totally Hey, I don't know what that word is, but just go to a different island, like I wasn't allowed to see, talk to anyone. I'm in this other community and and lay people saw it was wrong. My own they nobody would say anything because they didn't want to ruffle any feathers.
Ruffle the feathers, yep.
They didn't want to they were tiptoeing. I mean, I had a priest say to me, we have to brush this under the rug so nobody knows. It's wrong, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like I couldn't understand.
Yeah, that it just doesn't
I was
seem
so
right.
broken,
Yeah. Yeah, it
even
just
as a
doesn't seem.
sister.
But then
Yeah.
obviously, you and I know you said you went through like a rehab for nuns and did some self-searching after that, but at some point, alcohol came back into your life, right?
Yes. Yeah, I did. After I left the convent, I was depleted. I was like, my personality was crushed. I didn't know what to do. So at that point, I was invited to live with men and women with disabilities, which was a transition time. I needed to get love back. I was
Mhm.
like, and I was confused, God's calling and everything. And then I was there for a few years, and that's where I got my drinking back. It's like, "Oh, now I could drink."
Right.
Now I could yeah, I was like, "Yeah, I could have a party." Not that I didn't drink when I was a nun. I mean, I hit it well, but, of course, I didn't know about alcoholism as a sister. Like many other people, well, I speak for myself, I thought an alcoholic is somebody under the bridge with a paper bag, you know?
Right,
So, no,
exactly.
I'm a sister, I'm not that, but in hindsight, I was in charge of the alcohol, I loved I was always sneaking it. I was either I couldn't wait to drink because it would just numb my pain, and that's what alcoholics do with numb our pain. So, getting back to how I came to realize I'm an alcoholic was that, after a living with the men and women with disabilities, I came to the Jersey Shore, and at this point, I was just tired of serving, just tired
You were
of
just
serving,
spent.
helping
Yeah.
others, overwhelmed, burden, you name it. So what did I do? I went back to bartending, thinking, "Yeah, okay," this is still not thinking, I'm like my drinking and everything, still not think I'm a nun and everything. What's an alcoholic? And it was when I was bartending on the Jersey Shore, a gentleman named Danny came in, and I was like, "Wow, he's cute," and we started connecting, talking, and he was a retired cop, etcetera, and we went on a date and never really related with the guy before, after
Right.
nunnery, I mean, but this is 2 years later, and we did, we fell in love, I was like, "Oh, wow, maybe I got my man," I finally, I'm in my 40s, and granted, I may not have 8 kids now, but, I got my man.
Yeah.
But then I come to find out he was an alcoholic. So I learned about the disease of alcoholic through being in love with one at the same time. So here I'm enabling him. I mean, not really realizing it. Oh, you gotta stop, blah, blah, blah. And he did. He found his sobriety out in Arizona. So finally, but once again, Nathan, I'm like, why me? Why is this?
Yeah.
Why do you have to find a guy who's an alcohol? Why does this have to happen to me? He was a great man, but why this? Why can't he stop? And so he did. He found we were going to go out to Arizona. Everything would be great. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And on his way out, he found sobriety out in Arizona, like I said, and then he came back to the Jersey Shore to pick up his truck, go cross country with his mom, and we were gonna make it a go in Arizona because he found sobriety and great man, sober man, great man. Well, in Indianapolis, they got into a car accident, and I got that phone call, 300, that dreaded phone call saying that Danny and mom got into an accident. Mom died, the truck burned up, and Danny's burnt up, and he's in the hospital in Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
It's like, oh my God, how much more can I get? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I
this.
mean, here
But
you are thinking you're finally getting a chance at life, at the life that you wanted so many years ago, and then boom, all of a
yeah.
sudden, now there's a big accident.
It's a big accident, but yet I kept saying, "Okay, I'm going out to Indianapolis, go to the corn country, whatever it may be." He survived. Everything is great. He was burnt 50% almost of half of his body. He was in AA. He had about 2 months in AA, but one day counts, and then, we got a group of friends of AA out there, they supported us, everything is great. "Okay, Danny, we're not going to Arizona, we're gonna stay in Indianapolis because you got AA." At this point, I'm part of Al-Anon, I got Al-Anon, everything is good. But anyhow, what does an alcoholic do when they're in pain, especially the pain that Danny experienced, seeing
But yeah, I can't
being
even
burned?
imagine.
And the thing is, Nathan, when they had this accident, I they hit a tree, they hit a tree, they hit a tree right on Route 70. The mom died instantly, and that's when the truck burned up and the mom burned up, was burning up. Do you know that Danny did not get knocked out? He was conscious through this whole. So, like, I'm thinking, "God, why? Why didn't
Yeah.
he?" Because he saw his mother burn up, he couldn't do anything, he was stuck, he was burning up. There was a point where he finally said he was telling me, he's like, "I give up, Gina, I gave up." And then there was a truck driver, because it was 1 in the morning, stopped and got Danny out. Danny's running around in the fire, and that's how he survived, but I couldn't understand, God, why did he have to see that? So, I mean, I just share this because, He did. He picked up. We're in Indianapolis. We've got this nice apartment. We've got these friends. I go berserk. I couldn't understand it because I didn't really understand like what alcoholism does, really.
Right.
And so he picks up. I'm like, I kind of relapse in my own way because, granted, drinking is a symptom. You have all this other, the fear, the pain, the insecurities, you name it, you enabling everything, manipulation, negativity. That's all like part of the symptoms of, part of the symptoms. But um, so I kick him out, and then I'm like, maybe, I'm like, God, get him sober. Come on.
Yeah.
And but then about 5 months later, I found him dead. He died from the disease. He fell and he hit his head, and
I'm so sorry to hear
he
about
was
that.
dead for a few days before I found him. And
Yeah,
so
and again, so how did you handle that? Because that's I mean, everything you've gone through to this point, I'm like, I'm already given up, and if I had hair, it would have been gone already, right?
no, at that point, Nathan, I did give up. I gave up. I was tired. I couldn't go any further. What is the meaning of life? I couldn't even I was just simply existing. At this point, I was like, okay, God, I'll just suffer. I'm used to it. I'm used to the
Mhm.
misfortunes. I'm used to the mishaps. I'm used to it. I don't have to be happy. You give it to somebody else. I mean, yeah, everybody has problems, but now, you know what? I was like, I was just flatlined.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
I mean,
simply
and
existing.
anybody would have been flatlined probably way before this, but the fact that you made it that far is kind of incredible on its own, Gina.
You know what? Thank you for telling me that because I don't see these things. You know what I mean? I just kept moving and I just kept moving.
Yeah.
So here, I'm in Indianapolis. He dies. There was a few good friends there from AA that supported me, and I was like, I got to go back to the Jersey Shore. So I did. I came back to the Jersey Shore, but at this point, I was grieving. I was in such complicated grief with Danny. He died a month. I found him a month. I found him like 3 days later, I believe he died, but, a month before our wedding day. We were engaged, we were gonna get married, I had my wedding dress, I'm like, "This is" and,
Yeah.
never wore the wedding dress, never even got it couldn't even get it altered because it just happened boom, 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 and so anyhow, I come back to the Jersey Shore, and I'm just breath breathing. I was just breathing,
Are
feeling,
you
crying, you name it. I did get a job. I got an apartment. My apartment had the shrine of Danny. To be honest, Nathan, I mean, this is how complicated grief I was in, is that I was waiting for him to walk through that door. I was like, okay, after the year,
in that
okay,
denial, right?
Danny,
Yeah.
yeah, come on. I'm walking. I got dinner ready. And even though I wasn't, and also I was suffering with PTSD, even though I was
Oh,
not
yeah.
there with the fire, whenever I saw
You
fire,
saw
I
the
thought
after
of him.
effects. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I had so many. So I was just like a zombie. I was just, I did not want to live. Every night I prayed that I would die in my sleep. I would never take my life. But in the morning I would wake up and I was like, crap, I got to wake up.
Darn it. Yeah, right?
Darn it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I had, I had to get a job because I did get an apartment. My dad was still alive at the time and he did help me out. But I mean, like I said, it was just something that was the only thing people said, you keep going, and so, I mean, I'd go to work, come back, stay in the bed, just at this point, I wasn't really drinking because I was afraid of the drink because
Mhm.
I saw what it did to Danny and I didn't know I was just so confused. So then one night, and I don't know why, for a reason, I went into a meeting, an AA meeting. It was an open speaker meeting. And I think part of me wanted to know why Danny died. I mean, he was saved by this fire. He wasn't drinking. And then all of a sudden he falls and he's dead. Like I couldn't understand it. So I went into the room, an open speaker. I'm sitting the way back and I'm just crying. And a gentleman came up to me afterwards and say, "You okay?" Oh, I would tell my whole story. And then he invited me to come to another meeting, a closed discussion meeting here at the beach. It's a club right across from the beach, and I said, "But I'm not an alcoholic." "No, no, no, just come so you could." And I did, and there's a tradition 3 that says, you could identify yourself the desire not to pick up, so I said, "But I'm not an alcoholic, just raise your hand, and when they come by, just say, 'You're my name is Gina, desire not to pick up.'" "Okay, okay." Well, Nathan, I was in that room for about 11 months saying the desire not to pick up. I was there every day. I was in the beginning, I was so angry. I was so angry, I was crying, I was sad, I didn't wanna talk to anyone. People were laughing. I'm like, "Wha How could you be laughing?" And then there were people who had, like, about decades of sobriety, and they were still jerks, and I'm like, "How does this happen?" Like, I was so
Right.
confused, but yet, in the beginning, I wasn't talking to anyone, I was sitting in the corner holding up the wall, they say, and just miserable. I was so miserable, I just cried, and then I just kept coming, I was listening. I kinda, like, started sharing a little bit, but I'm still not an alcoholic, you guys are, and I'm just here to find out why Danny didn't make it. Like, he was an alcoholic, why he didn't make it to be sober. And then during that time, maybe 6, 7 months, a friend of mine takes me aside, says, Gina, you come here every day," and she questioned me. She goes, "What is your relationship with alcohol?" My relationship? Like, no, no. And then in hindsight, Nathan, I mean, I'm alcoholics, some people think you have to be drinking every day, be downright drunk, or, there's so
Yeah,
many different forms of alcoholics,
there is.
some are
There really is. Yep.
functional, some are functional. It is just that you have that disease of the brain, of the mind. You have the disease of insecurity. You have that, like, you're not feeling, you're not comfortable in your own skin. You're just like inadequate. Like, and I was like, so here I was listening, and I was looking at my life and saying, I did run to the alcohol. I mean, even as a nun, like, I mean, you would think if you're a nun, alcohol would be furthest from your mind, but alcohol was in
Right.
my mind. Like, I couldn't wait to drink. I couldn't wait for Saturdays to come. If I was the superior of the convent, I would make it a day, say, "Oh, yeah, let's celebrate. It's such and such day." It was always a celebration. And not that I was downing, but I was always around. And then at times, I didn't wanna feel my pain. I didn't wanna feel my life. I didn't want I was always an escape route. And I was very good because not many people would think I was an alcoholic. I was very good at it, hiding, because I didn't know I was
Yeah,
until.
and most alcoholics are good at hiding it, right? Except for people that are really, really close to them.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and I really, like, and one thing I would have to say at the end of my community life or religious life, my superior did took me aside and says, sister, I think you're drinking too much. You're only allowed to have one beer. I'm like, me? I can't. What are you talking about? And I did, Nathan. I had that one beer in front of her, but it was a good alcoholic or a good drinker does sneaks the others, goes
Exactly.
around,
Yep.
like, takes this one or, whatever, maybe get the leftovers, and that's what I looked up in hindsight, that's what I found I was doing, it made me someone that I wasn't, and so, on April 2nd, 2015, in the meeting, I recognized myself, I identify myself, "Hi, my name is Gina, I am an alcoholic." So I'm like a very slow learner. I'm not like any others. I mean, my story is probably as different as other stories in the rooms of AA, but yet it's my story. And when I said I was an alcoholic that day, I was like, it wasn't like I was meant to say it. I was like, who the hell said it? And I didn't know how it came out. But when I did, that was the most painful day because everything that I was holding on to, my insecurities, everything I was carrying, the fear, the anger, the resentments, all the every pain, my body just opened up and there was more pain. And I was like, oh my God. And then there was a voice that said to me, what do you want to do with this pain? Do you want to go drink? Or do you wanna, get sober? Or do you wanna or do you wanna go miserable? Because it was either the drinking or the self-pity.
Mhm.
Always filled with self-pity. So I joined the club, so to speak. One day at a time, I put 2 feet in. I got a sponsor, got a home group, slowly but surely. But I have to say, the programs of AA 12-step programs is spiritual. It's a spiritual. It's not
Yes.
religious. Yes, they talk a lot about God, but they talk about a higher power. I hated God when I went in there, and
Oh,
nobody
I'm
knew I was
sure.
a nun.
Yeah, I'm sure because everything you've been through, right? The only thing you would think to yourself is what has God done for me other than make me miserable, right? That's
Exactly.
probably what you thought.
Exactly. I blamed God for everything. I blamed him for everything. And so in the beginning, nobody, like I said, nobody knew I was a nun. People, I started kind of being open and honest about my feelings with higher power, with God in some of the meetings. And people will pull me aside, well, just know that God does love you. And in my mind, they didn't know I was a nun. So in my
Right.
mind, I was like, no crap, God loves me. I married him, I'm divorced to him, and right now I hate him.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he knows me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's I don't wanna say acceptable, but definitely understandable during that time,
Yeah.
because you've gone through all that, you paid like you said, you literally married God and, from your belief and your background and spent 12 years serving him and others, and just to have them say, "Hey, Gina, get out."
I know.
Yeah, that's so tough, but the nice thing and I try to look at positives from a lot of stuff. I tend to be a little bit more of a negative person, but, the positive here is that you looked back and saw that, "Hey, you know what? I was using alcohol as a solution to my problem," right? And I identified that, yes, I am an alcoholic, and you found the AA groups, which I'm sure has changed your life.
Yes, it has. I mean, today I still very involved in the program. I live to my best ability of not picking up a drink today. Yes, I'm reunited with God in a deeper way, in a relationship
Oh,
way that
yeah.
I never felt before, even as a nun, even as a sister. And I'm not downplaying. I mean, what I received as a sister was the time that I received it. It was the grace that God gave me, and I believe seeds were planted because now today, knowing who I am and living a life of sobriety one day at a time and growing and changing, in my religion, my faith and everything, that the seeds that were planted are like, yeah, I remember that now. I understand now because I know who I am. I'm an alcoholic, but that doesn't define who I am. And so, you know what I'm saying?
Yep,
I'm an
exactly.
alcoholic,
Yeah.
but I'm not this person that's running all the time. I'm not this little girl that's hiding or not. I don't want to say 100%, but I'm still a people pleaser sometimes. But yet I have to check my
Me too, Gina,
motives.
so I get it.
But I'm aware. Like you said, being awareness is the most key thing. Like, aha, this is one thing I could do everything, and the one thing I can't do is pick up a drink. Because everything I have today, I live really a life of happy, joyous, and free. And believe it or not, Nathan, that's what I've been searching for my whole
Your
life,
whole life.
as a
Yeah.
throughout my life. Throughout my life,
And out of
and
all
I'm
this, right, all of out of all your experiences comes your book, Shake Off the Dust Off Your
off
Feet
you.
and Walk, and but why did you write it? What do you hope readers take away from it?
I wrote it after Danny died. I wrote about 180 pages about my pain. And in that pain of writing about Danny's death came the pain of the sisters because I never told anyone my experience
Yeah.
as a sister. So I wrote all that. I put that aside. Now here I go on my journey, finding sobriety, finding peace, reconciliation, healing, forgiveness in my own life. And a few years ago, I was talking to someone likes to write and read. I said, "Would you like to take?" For some reason, I still had that after 10 years. I still had that 180 pages. Take a read of this. And when I do share my story in the rooms of AA, everyone would say, "Oh my God, you should write a book, or what a life. Like it could be a movie, give some strength and hope." And like, when people had mentioned that to me, even when I left the sisterhood, when started coming out, I said, "No, I can't write it because I'm full of anger." So now fast forward, having some sobriety under my belt and being at peace with myself, when my friend read it, she's like, "Okay, I'll help you. Let's do this together, but write today, write where you are today and how you got here today." And that's what I shared. And so it's a message of strength and hope. It's a message of you're not alone. Do not give up. I've been there. I think I've been, I know we all have our own pains, we own trials. I'm not here to take any suffering away from
No,
anyone,
absolutely not, no. Yeah.
but yet, I'm just another dude on this bus. I'm like another bozo on this bus that
Right,
just that's living a life that I like to share and to tell people, you're not alone. Whether I
and
know you
that's
or
what
not,
I
you're not alone.
and that's what I love about doing this show because I like to encourage people to let them know that they're not alone, that whatever they're facing today or wherever they are today, if they want to, they can make their life better. They can do things to put them on that path to, quote unquote righteousness and to be the best version of themselves that they want to be. And that's why I love sharing stories like yours because you have a lot of things that I can relate to. I've had problems with alcohol in my life, so I know that part. Obviously, I've never been a nun, so I can't relate to that. But I know just what you've been. I've dealt with loss. I've dealt with, heavy things. I was a police officer for 13 years, so I've seen things and have that PTSD recollection, like and you know it from what it is. So
Yeah.
it's nice. I think it helps people to realize, like you said, number one, they're not alone. They're not the only one who's ever gone through this, and there are people out there that you can talk to if you need help.
Yeah. Yes, there's so many resources, and yeah, it's just not to give up. It's just to keep going.
Absolutely.
And another thing I've learned, and you might have learned this too, is that it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel angry. Like when I was in the rooms of AA, when I say I hated God, it was okay. It was okay because that was my feelings. That was my truth. As you
And you
spit,
had to work
as you
through
shit.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. If I didn't say, "Oh, no, God is gr," like, no, 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 no. I was angry. I was so angry. So, it's okay to say, "Hey, I'm angry. No, I don't like this. I don't like what's going on with me," or "Why did this happen to me?" Question, "Why does this happen to me?" And it could be, I mean, you go through a lot of pain and suffering, and then now as being, as a Christian, it's like I look at the cross, more, and I'm like, "Okay, if Jesus been through it."
Yeah. I mean, he went through a heck of a lot more than we did, right?
I
But
know.
you know what? And I look at it this way too, Gina, is that I have the hope that if I can abstain from sin and, be the best Christian that I can be to ensure that I'm honoring God and Christ, that I will hopefully one day have that honor of talking to God and maybe asking why and getting that full understanding of the picture.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I have a whole list of questions, but I also believe for because also I don't think I shared with you. I'm an end of life doula, so I'm with presence with people who are dying to go in that transition time, whether it's to their heaven, to their God or Buddha, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
their peace.
And
Because
it's funny you say that, Gina, because that's exactly where I was gonna go next, because today you are an end-of-life doula on the
yeah,
Jersey Shore, right? And can you
yes.
explain just for our listeners that may not know what an end-of-life doula is, can you explain just a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, it's a non-medical holistic practice of being present to the dying, being present to those to help them transition from this life to the next in a peaceful manner, in dignity, in respect, and to be there for the family too, because it is a challenging time and very
Absolutely.
challenging. And some people may, I just go to be there, just to be present, whether it's to pray, whether it's they'll be listened to, whether it's just to hold their hand. It's sort of like in the hospice field if people get into hospice, but it's sort of like something extra that if
Exactly.
someone
You
wants
you
my
you bring that little
service.
bit of a yeah, maybe like a more of a faith-based or like you said, holistic base. You're not pumping medicine into folks, but you're helping them ease their way out of this life and into the next.
Exactly. Exactly. And any way, any belief, faith that they have, I mean, I'm not there to judge. I know in my heart who God is. So I leave it in God's hands because God will put me at places, and He did. He put me in many places of many. I'm not saying, not only recently, but even throughout. Like that's the seed of that was planted when I was a nun. When I was a nun, I was at a whole slew of men and women, children at their last moment of their breath. And I just felt a real peace and consolation in my heart. Like it was like a passion. Yeah, I'll go. I'll go hold that person's hand. I'll help them. So later on, I didn't know what an end of life doula was until somebody introduced it to me a few years ago. Say, you could get paid, you could be certified. Just I was like, what? So so yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I
But that
do today.
That's such a great story though that, and again, here's that people pleaser coming in, but I don't think you're doing the people pleasing just to people please. You're there because you have a gift, and I have to call it a gift because a lot of people could not do that, right? A lot of people could not be with other people, especially people they may not know, or not have known for long and watch them die. A lot of people can't do that, but for you to take your experiences, even your faith, even if their faith may not be the same, but even your faith to help build you up and help them ease out to the next, out of this life, but also help their family. I mean, it just speaks volumes to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, it is. It's a total passion, and like you, it is a gift, and it is a gift, and that's one gift I do thank God, and yeah, it's a passion. So whenever somebody is passing away, I may not be there, but I have them in my heart, praying for them, and knowing, sending prayers to them at their bedside, because everyone deserves to have a to die in dignity and
Yeah.
respect. I don't care who
Yep.
you are, what you did in this life. We all have that, that what you say, yeah, to die. And that's one thing is through Mother Teresa. She always says, we need to give the people the dignity to die with
Yeah.
respect. It doesn't
Yep.
matter who you are. So I
Yeah, and
try
I'm so
to,
glad that you do that because there's, quite often sometimes life's taken so short, maybe without dignity, and so for you to be there for those that do have that opportunity, that's just
yeah.
a great thing because I can't think of a better way. Not that I want to die anytime soon, right, Gina? But I can't think of a better way than to have someone, with your background, your story, to help me understand, what's going on
Yeah.
and just put me at peace, through
Yes.
that transition.
Yes. So give me a call.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a while, Gina. I hope
No,
so.
I know. No, no, no. I know. Just,
But
yeah, but yeah,
and Gina, the one thing that I took from everything that we've talked about today is that your story is definitely about resilience and hope. And, so what's one thing that you would tell someone who's in their darkest moment right now?
that you're not alone. That always keeps coming to me, and know that, if nobody told you that they love you today, I do. And just don't give up.
Yep. I love that because I don't think we hear enough of that today, Gina. And, like again, we've already talked about it, what we saw earlier this last week.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
for someone just to speak their mind and be assassinated for it, or, as someone, drive-by shootings that we see in neighborhoods all the time and all this violence, it's like nobody deserves that. And,
no.
I hope that we as a country and more as a world can come to realize that we're all human beings, regardless of what our political beliefs, religious beliefs, or whatever. We all have blood rushing through our body. We all breathe the same air. We put our clothes on the same way. We've got so much more in common than those little things that it's not necessary for us to be violent towards each other. There's enough violence in the world without us doing it to each other.
And one thing I like to add to that, I believe not that, of course, I believe in God and my God, but I believe that we all come from a source that's not ourselves. That's something that's greater, a higher power or somebody. And that's another thing I encourage all of us always to reach out to that source that's greater out here, but also within us. Like there's a light in all of us that wants to grow. And it's a light it's eternal. It's an eternal light that wants to grow in this life. And however we feed it, or feed with positivity, or how whatever we believe in, but know it's there, that it's not Gina, and it's not you, it's not Johnny, it's not whoever. So that's what I really feel.
And
So,
and
with
that's a
everything that,
great take on it for especially people that are not Christians, or may not have but one of the things I like to say, Gina, is just look outside. All these things that come together that make us live. And, I know scientists say it all came from a big bang, but I'm sorry, everything works together too perfectly to not have at least some type of intelligent designer.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
And for me, that's God. God did that for
Yeah,
me. And that's how I believe
yeah,
it. That's how I was raised. That's what I believe.
yeah,
But, for other people, you don't have to think that it is God per se, the Christian God, right? Just a higher power, like AA says, right? A higher power, which could be anything. It could be your AA group if you're an alcoholic. That could be your higher power because they're keeping you, from
yeah.
drinking or helping you from drinking, things like that. Enough to just say, the point that I wanted to make there was that just the world's too perfect and just sit back and take a look around for a while and just realize that there's no way this could have just happened by chance.
Amen. Amen. It's nothing I yeah, it's true. It is true, and it's what we believe in, it's our faith, and even granted it could be anything to bring positivity, to bring light. Like, I
Yes,
keep thinking light, we're in a dark time, bring light,
absolutely.
and there's hope. And in my life, in my faith, or what I believe is that, God is already victorious. So our light is already victorious. So granted, so what happened last week is gonna probably be more tragedy and in the whatever, but at the same time, God's behind it all and he sees it all, and we just gotta do our best to be the best version of ourselves in the
Exactly.
light
This is
or
not
in the
our world,
universe.
right?
No,
But this is not our world. We're just passing through, and
we're on
we're
borrowed
trying to
time.
store up our riches in heavens. Yep, absolutely. But
Yeah, so
Gina, I want to lighten things up just a little bit. I do a quick
yeah,
segment called Dude Q&A. I just ask you some rapid fire questions, let the audience get to know you a little bit on a personal level, but hopefully you
sounds
don't
good.
mind. But I want to ask you, so it's based on your background, but what is your favorite Italian or Greek dish from your childhood?
Lasagna.
I'm a huge lasagna fan. I love it. Homemade lasagna. I don't not none of that
Yes.
store-bought stuff, you know?
No, no, no. Mom's lasagna.
Yeah, I love that. Beach or mountains? What's your favorite?
Beach.
Me too. Now
Beach.
I love the mountains. I love being there, but there's just something about sitting on the beach, hearing the waves crash, seeing the birds fly by. It's just amazing.
And one thing, beach for me is where heaven and earth meets.
Yes, I remember reading a quote from you about that. I love that. What is one word that sums up your convent experience? I know this is a
Boy,
tough
one
one.
word. I know, one word that sums up my car.
I like that. You took a what was possibly a negative experience and you looked at it as an opportunity for growth. I love that. What is your go-to song when you need a little lift?
Celebration,
Oh, I
first thing.
like that. If you could
Celebra Go
break
ahead.
good yeah, come on, I love it.
Go on.
If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
I love you.
That is so great because I know sometimes and I know you came from a loving family, but those especially in a bigger family and sometimes if we have siblings that take more attention, we may not hear that enough, you know? And so I love that because that's exactly what I would tell myself. So that was it, Gina. That was a dude
That's
Q&A,
it.
super super quick and easy, right? Hopefully, it wasn't too
That was
bad.
fun.
But
That was
yeah,
fun.
we're coming up on an hour, and I want to thank you for this conversation, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your incredible journey with us. But you came from the convent to the Jersey Shore. Your story of resilience, faith, and hope is really truly inspiring. And folks, if you want to dive deeper, grab Gina's best-selling book, "Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk." It's really a transformative read. Check out more about Gina and her work at ginaecon.com. And then, Gina, I want to give you an opportunity. Is there any last words for our listeners that you would like to leave them with?
No, just go follow your heart, and one day at a time. Just keep breathing. Thank you. Thank you to and to all the listeners, and know you're all in my prayers, and I'm always here praying and loving. So
Beautifully said, Gina. All right, that's it for this episode of Just a Dude podcast. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share it with a friend who needs some hope today. I'm Nathan with Just a Dude podcast. I'll catch you on the next episode.